Okay, ladies and gentlemen, as we now look at section 3.5 from my Math 1105 class, question: what does absolute value measure? Well, I know in the past you've been taught things like absolute value of 7 is 7. You've also been taught absolute value of negative 7 is also 7. And the reason that's true is because what absolute value measures is the distance that you are away from 0. So inside the absolute value bars, it's fine to have a negative number, but the answer to absolute value has to either be a positive number or it can be 0. Because you can't have an absolute value of 0 if you're standing, at the origin. The absolute value of 0 is 0. What you can't have is the answer being negative. So what does absolute value measure? It measures the distance from 0, or from the origin, whatever you want to call it. Okay? So we always expect the answer to be non-negative. That means positive or 0. So, if I asked you to solve this equation, when is the absolute value of x equal to negative 15? Okay, this should be pretty easy. Absolute value measures distance, right? When is distance equal to a negative answer? Never. Another way to write that? No solution. Distance cannot equal a negative answer. Okay, absolute value of x equals 0. When is distance equal to 0? Well, the only time distance is equal to 0 is when you're standing on the origin. So that means x has to be 0 in this case. So there's one answer to this equation. Okay. How about the next one? Solve. Absolute value of 4x minus 1 is equal to 6. Okay, for a minute, I really don't even care what this is. Okay, I'm just going to say, you know how we do in class, I'm going to just call this blah blah. Blah blah is located at a distance of exactly 6 blocks from 0. Okay? You don't even worry about what this looks like, just call it blah blah. Something is located at a distance of exactly 6 blocks from 0. Well, if you're 6 blocks away from 0, where are you? Well, hopefully you're either, blah blah, which is 4x minus 1. Now let's call it by name. Blah blah is either sitting on top of negative 6, or blah blah is sitting on top of positive 6. In other words, there are two ways for distance from 0 to be 6 blocks. Your thing in here can either be sitting on negative 6, or, and the word or is important, your thing in there can be sitting on top of positive 6. And notice there are no more absolute value bars left. You've interpreted what it means. When I now solve this, let's add 1 to both sides of the equation. 4x is equal to negative 5. When I divide by 4, I get the answer negative 5 over 4. Now remember, it's okay to get negative x values. Things that go in here can be negative. What can't be negative is the final answer that comes out. And one more case. When I add 1 to both sides here, 4x is equal to 7. When I divide by 4, x is equal to 7/4. So I have two answers here. I have a negative 5/4. I also have a 7/4. And if you checked them, they would both work. If you went up here and plugged in, if you plugged in negative 5/4, the 4's would cancel. Negative 5 minus 1 is negative 6. Absolute value of negative 6 is 6. If you plugged in 7/4, the 4's would cancel. 7 minus 1 is 6, and the absolute value of 6 is 6. So even though you don't have to check them, it's easy to plug them in and see that they both work. Okay, and this last one. Absolute value of 4x minus 2 minus 6 is equal to a negative 4. Now some people would go, no, this can't work because the answer can't be negative. But don't fall into this trap. The first thing you have to do is get the absolute value bars alone before you can decide if the problem can be worked. So my first step here would be to add 6, okay? Which gives me the absolute value of 4x minus 2 is equal to 2. Okay, so this is a workable problem. Distance can equal a positive number. Now you ask yourself the question, okay? If this quantity is located at a distance of exactly 2 blocks away from 0, where am I? Well, if I'm 2 blocks away from 0, 4x minus 2 is either sitting on top of a negative 2, or, and the word or is important, 4x minus 2 is sitting on top of positive 2. So there are two ways absolute value of something can be 2. If it's equal to negative 2 or if the thing is equal to positive 2. And now you solve the cases. Here you add 2 to both sides. You get 4x is 0. Divide by 4. 0 divided by 4 is 0. There's one answer. Here you add 2 to both sides. 4x is equal to 4. Divide by 4. X is 1. And if you want to put them in set brackets, our solution set would be 0, 1. And we're done.